Do you struggle with anxiety but can't seem to find peace no matter what you try? Have you been told to just relax, but it never works? Then this episode reveals why you've been chasing the wrong thing. Welcome to the Men's Mental Health and Movement Podcast. One step stronger, live longer. Today, we're diving deep, literally and metaphorically, with a woman who found a way out of suicide through the silence that lies 79 meters below the ocean's surface. She holds her breath for a living. Today, Helena Bourdillon has a message that could totally flip your understanding of mental health. If you've ever felt numb, that you didn't know you were even alive, this conversation could be the one to remind you that it is possible. This is Helena's story, and it might just save your life. So, Helena, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Tony. Lovely to be here.
Great to have you. So in your intro there, I described you as you hold your breath for a living, which is not something most people do every day. So let's just put that on hold for a second, but take me back to what life was like before you started holding your breath for a living.
Right. 25 years ago, in 2000, I had my rock bottom. I'm 51 now, and that was back when I was 26. And for the 15 years prior to that, I had been experiencing depression. It started when I was 11, just coming up to 12. And I noticed that for like 3 weeks, I felt crap. And I felt really low and I didn't want to communicate. And then it disappeared. I forgot about it and I went on with life. You know, I was coming up to my teenage years. There's plenty of stuff to get on with. However, it then came back. And this cycle continued for the next 15 years. And every time it came back more intensely, for longer. And the respite in between became much, much shorter. So by 2000, I was self-harming and planning my suicide. It was pretty bad. You know, it was the obsessional thought about, you know, to the most minute detail of knowing how I was going to do it. And physically, I was in a place where I could barely get out of bed to go to the bathroom or to brush my teeth. You know, I was totally insular. I wasn't communicating with everyone. I was just about alive. But, you know, in terms of numbness, I had lost all my enthusiasm for life completely. And every morning when I woke up, I felt like I was waking into a nightmare. And I just didn't want to be there.
Yeah, that must have been hard. Must have been really hard. So you're just back to when that first started then, when you were, 12 years old, at school, I presume? Well,
Yep.
were you at
I was actually at boarding school.
Boarding school, yeah.
Which I was incredibly fortunate to be at boarding school, but in hindsight, whatever happened, it happened. I'm here today because of my experiences that I've been through. Would I rather have not gone through them? Absolutely. But I have a purpose now that drives me and I'm very passionate about it. So, you know, silver linings.
Yeah. So when you said that you felt numb, what did your world look like then? You know, with regards to like functioning and friends and things like that.
The numbness was sort of noticeable a lot later, I think. You know, when I think about the crash in 2000, I was working in telecoms at the time. I was working in a great company. It very much had the culture of work hard, play hard. I was at my desk at 7:30 in the morning. I was in the bar at 6:30 at night. I was drinking 4 or 5 nights a week. I don't have alcoholism, but it was one way to get over it's spending time with myself is it was a really weird thing, because I didn't want to spend time with myself because that was even more depressing, and
Yeah.
yet being with people is also really, really challenging. And so I suppose alcohol made it more bearable. It gives you that Dutch courage, and you go out large. And so I was doing that, and I was completely numb to my feelings, and I was going through the motions every day. And after I started talking about this in 2017, I had a message from an ex-boyfriend who I was going out with just before that, right? Kind of the turn of the century. Wow, I feel old. I was going out with in 97 to 98, around that time, and he messaged me and said, I never knew.
Right.
How was this going on? And that's the thing with anyone who suffers from depression, because of the stigma, because of the blinkers of it, we become incredibly good at hiding it and just going on through everyday life and getting the job done until we reach a point where it's just not possible anymore, and kind of the explosion happens, the meltdown, the breakdown, whatever it is happens.
Yeah.
And so that numbness was there 24/7, but I was still going through the motions every day of going to work, going to the bar, being vibrant, vivacious, having fun, socializing, work hard, play hard, all of that. And inside I was dying. It was absolutely,
Yeah.
completely.
Basically walking around with the mask on.
Yeah, totally.
And performing to everybody, really.
I think an awful lot of people with depression would probably make better actors than they realize, the stage.
Yeah.
As a child, I wanted to be on the stage, but it wasn't that I wanted to spend my life hiding the fact that I was in such a bad way.
Yeah. So you said that you're on the verge of suicide. So what stopped you? What made you realize that something was wrong and that you'd rather do something to change it?
I had a bit of an epiphany, because I was self-harming and I was cutting myself.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, the first time I did that, I felt more alive than I think I'd ever felt. It was one of the most intense highs of my life. The other one is to do with the breath holding, we'll come on to. And I actually felt alive. And so that was very, oh my God, this is how I feel alive, for a while. And then the penny began to drop, and I just thought, this isn't normal behavior. This isn't what healthy people do. And
Mm-hmm.
it began to come into focus in how bad a state I was in. And I actually was aware enough to realize that I needed help. And I remember I rang the doctor, because I didn't want to speak to anyone I knew about it, because I was like, I don't really know what's going on, and
Yeah.
I don't want to tell anyone about what I'm doing to myself or the thoughts that are going through my head. So I rang my GP and arranged to make an appointment, and then promptly rang back and said, I think I'll need a double appointment. And I was sort of speaking to the woman to make the appointment, and she was like, well, I need to tell the doctor what it's about. And I listed off about 8 things. And then at the end I was like, and I might be a little depressed. And I went to the doctor. Probably about 3 days later, I got this appointment, and he was amazing. And he was the first person to save my life, because he went through every single thing on that list. And only at the end, when I felt that there was some level of trust, did he say very gently, very nicely, calmly, compassionately, do you want to tell me about that? And Yeah, that was really profound, that there was someone who was prepared to listen, who wouldn't judge me, who realized that I needed help and was there to give it to me. And yeah, he doesn't know it, but he was probably the first person to help save my life.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that you managed to find somebody. And that first of all, you took that step, that self-realization to kind of open up about it, because I actually thought you weren't going to say that at the end, because you'd listed all those things and you turned up to the doctor for all these things that weren't wrong with you. Because that's often what people do, but to find that doctor that had the compassion and the empathy it sounds like he was the person that was born to be a doctor, really, isn't it?
I thank my lucky stars that I ended up in his diary that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I really was lucky.
Yeah. Beautiful. And you're here today to share your story, which is great. So let's just jump on to holding your breath, because this is an interesting concept that the listener still doesn't know what we're talking about. So where did that come from?
I was a water baby as a child. I absolutely loved swimming, being in the swimming pool, in the ocean. Some of my happiest memories are around water. Even the bath, which for many years I don't want to have a bath. But actually when I was in the bath, I always really enjoyed it. So, I'd always been very comfortable in water. When I was a teenager, I was lucky enough to try scuba diving quite a few times, and I always enjoyed it. However, one of the things that you are told that you have to keep doing while you're scuba diving is keep breathing. And I find it really noisy. It's a bit like Darth Vader as you're breathing in and then all the bubbles, and it's just so loud. And I would have to keep reminding myself to keep breathing, because I would naturally hold my breath because it was quieter and more peaceful, and I really enjoyed that. And so I had that, and then I think it was 1989. I remember it was a rainy Saturday afternoon, boarding school, and we watched The Big Blue, which is a film about freediving,
amazing
made
film
by Luc Besson. It's a bit of a cult B movie, but it's an amazing, it's perfect for a rainy afternoon, slow burn film. And thought, that is amazing. I have to try that. And then, of course, it took 24 years to try it. I was going traveling in Thailand with a friend. They wanted to do their scuba and they were organizing everything. So I said, please find a school that does free diving as well, because I'd like to give that a try. And so this was 2013. And to be a bit of a cliche, it was love at first dive, properly. I've been obsessed about it ever since. So what freediving is, it's not jumping off a cliff like a lot of people tend to think it is. It is breath hold diving. And you can do either distance or depth. Distance is generally done in a swimming pool, and depth is done in the ocean. And my particular discipline and preference is certainly for depth. So I lie back on the surface of the ocean. I relax as intensely as I possibly can. People consider it an extreme sport. I call it the extreme sport of relaxation, because if I'm not relaxed, if I have adrenaline in my system, my heart rate's going faster. I'm burning through the oxygen faster. So I relax as much as possible. I take a massive big breath, and then I dive as deep as I can on this breath and come back with this deep breath. And that's freediving. And that's what I'm absolutely passionate about.
Wow. That's amazing. Big Blue's a fantastic film. I watched that many, many years ago. I probably watched it about 5 or 6 times.
Yes.
And it's something that I always found quite interesting, but I've never done because, I think we've spoken before about the fact that, like, I've watched your films, which we'll get to, which are phenomenal. I've done scuba, and the Darth Vader situation is definitely a thing. I wish that when I got taught scuba, that the guy had taught told me to breathe like Darth Vader in the first place, and then I think I'd have absolutely
Yes.
nailed it straight away. But it did take me a while to get that kind of breathing underwater situation going.
Yes.
But free diving's a different level, I think. So curiously, how far did you dive on your first dive?
Probably around 3 meters, and it probably lasted all of 20 seconds. You know, it was minimal.
Yeah.
But as I put my head, I mean, I came back up with this crazed look on my face, and the instructor was like, "Are you okay?" And my response was, "I'm home." And it was because when I put my head under the surface of the water, I was brought into the present moment so calmly. You think about it, when we're brought, most of the time when we're brought into the present moment, we're brought because something's dragging our attention and it's actually stimulating our fight or flight. This was the complete opposite. Despite being very excited about doing this, I was calm. And so this peace and quiet just enveloped me. And it was utterly mesmerizing and the start of a much healthier addiction, if I'm really honest, because you speak to most freedivers and we are all utterly addicted by it. It's but it's a reasonably healthy addiction. So
Yeah. So you went from basically doing something like scuba that was really noisy and stuff to being completely silent at extreme depths. And obviously that first dive was only 3 meters, but I mean, it must have felt like longer than 20 seconds to you while you were down there.
it felt like a lifetime. It was
Yeah.
amazing. It
Yeah.
was absolutely revolutionary. And it gave me something that I felt that like I had been looking for my entire life. It was so profound.
What was it about that silence that you think that your brain needed to make that switch?
There are 2 points to this, and I will come on. The silence is an interesting term because actually it's really noisy underwater, but in a completely different way. You hear the sounds of the reef, you hear boat traffic and stuff, but it's something we're completely not used to. So it piques your attention immediately. And it's this bringing you into the present, and everything else, all the other chatter that's going on in our brain every day, dissolves. Everything from the surface is left behind. So the negative voices in particular in the head saying, this is dangerous, you shouldn't be doing this, or I'm having an argument with the person I've come traveling around Thailand with and I really don't want to be with them anymore. Sorry if you're listening. That all was just left at the surface. And it was my head, my brain, everything inside here just went calm and quiet. And it was revolutionary. I'd never experienced that before, and in such a nice way. It wasn't, as I say, that shock of bringing you into the moment where so there's an accident, or in the extreme, there's an accident and you are suddenly there 100%. It was a very calm way to silence my mind and feel peaceful.
Yeah.
And so, that I wanted more. Let's just say I wanted a lot more.
Yeah. So let's move on then to that. So you went to that first one in Thailand, and you obviously got this,
Bug.
wow, that bug, this wow moment to want to do more of it. So what was the trajectory of you doing free diving from then on?
I split up with the person that I was traveling with within about 6 days because I wouldn't stop talking about freediving. And I did my level 1, I did my level 2 immediately. I then started my level 3, and I was obviously in Thailand only for a finite amount of time. I was supposed to be traveling around. Well, that didn't happen. I just stayed and did the freediving, and then came back to the UK and had plans to go to Dahab in Egypt, which it's a bit of a mecca for freediving. There's a blue hole there with extremely good conditions. However, there was a family situation, a health situation, a family, and all those plans got ditched for 10 months until we got through that in the right way. And then I sort of started going out to Dahab, and I ended up being out in Dahab on and off for almost 5 years.
Right.
Training, started competing in 2014. I did my instructor course. I didn't do a massive amount of instructing. To be honest, I was more interested in seeing what I could achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of just been carrying on with that over the last 12 years, really.
Yeah.
It seems like it started about a week ago and it's already been 12 years. So, yeah.
So was that almost like a second home for you then, was it? Backwards and forwards to there.
Well, no, and without being too graphic, no, because when a lot of people go to Dahab, because of the quality of the water and things, they don't tend to be very well. And I don't consider home to be a place where I'm kind of ill every other week. So,
Right.
But from a freediving point of view, yes, I mean, I grew massively while I was there over those 5 years. And then 2019, I started stretching my wings and going a little bit further afield until, of course, lockdown hit. And then that was slightly different. But yeah, I am very much a warm water free diver. I'm not a I don't like all this cold water stuff.
Yeah. I've seen some videos of that where they cut a hole in the ice and free dive down. It's like, oofed.
If I was ever going to do that, I would need to be wearing like a 7mm wetsuit. And the thing with that is then I'd probably need to wear about 7 kilos in weight to balance out how buoyant that wetsuit makes me.
Right.
And the trouble with that is that means I then have to swim back from the bottom with 7 extra kilos.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit lazy. So I'd much rather wear a 1mm wetsuit and only have to swim back with around 1 kilo of weight. It makes quite a significant difference. So,
yeah, I bet.
and it's very pretty. And I would love to try it just for the experience of sort of diving under ice, and maybe we'll do that next year. But I will have to be very much prepared with the right gear during it and sort of before and after, kind of sauna right next,
Yeah.
Because I'm not very good when I get cold.
Watch this space for the ice diving. Yes. So you went to you've done, obviously you're a world record holder, so you've done the world championships, and
6 times now I've done the world championships.
So tell me about that first one.
2015 was my first world championships in Cyprus. And there's quite an entertaining story. I used to get very, very nervous before my dives. And so you have 45 minutes before your official top, which is your allotted dive time.
Mm-hmm.
You have 45 minutes. You can get in the water, do your warm-ups, and get ready to do your dive. And on the warm-up lines, I was busy there doing my warm-ups and then went to do my dive. And I actually had a successful dive. And later in the afternoon, one of the safety divers from the warm-up lines came over to me and said, sort of, how did you do? And I was like, it was fine, I got a white card. And his jaw hit the floor because he said, you looked like you were about to have a heart attack. You looked absolutely terrified. And this was despite the fact that I had announced a dive that I had done many times in training already. But I was absolutely terrified. It was on the world stage, in a very small world, because freediving isn't that big a sport. And it was even smaller then. And everyone's focusing on you. And then there's the dive eye, which is the live drone. Actually, we didn't have it in those days, so that was fine. And actually, I find it very soothing to have the dive eye following me down and back up, because it means I know that there's even more safety level there, because if the people watching the live feed see that I happen to be in trouble at the bottom, they can sort of enact all the safety measures to get me back as quickly as possible should something like that happen, which is very, very small chance.
So just to clarify, a white card What's
a
a
white
white card
card
then?
means I have, subject to the judge's review, because they have to check the bottom cam, it means I've done the dive I've announced in the discipline I've announced with no visible fouls, like pulling the line when I shouldn't do or whatever. And I've done my surface protocol within the allotted time. When you come back up from a dive, you have to kind of demonstrate that you're not hypoxic, that your mental faculties are still there, and there's a so for example, you have to go like that and say I'm okay, and you have to do it in that order, and you have to say I'm okay. If you say other things or you get it the wrong way round, you get disqualified, and
Right.
you have this certain amount of time to do this, and if you achieve that, you then get your white card. Then they review the bottom footage at the end of the day's competition and confirm the results. So, interestingly, in my first competition, I got a red card, a yellow card, and a white card in my first competition back in 2014. So I've done the whole spectrum now. It doesn't worry me what I get now. So that was a good introduction to the sport. But yeah, a white card means a successful dive where
Yeah.
I have retrieved the tag from the bottom plate and I'm showing it to the judges at the end, and I've done my surface protocol and they give me a white card.
Yeah, cool.
It is
So
a bit
let's just
confusing.
just to clarify that for the listeners. I didn't think that you'd got it's similar to a yellow card in football. So just to clarify now, you went from that sort of first world championships, and now you've done, what did you say, six?
I've
6 of them?
done six or seven world championships.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have, for my age group, because I've entered into a slightly older age group. Despite my best efforts to be 29 again for decades, I'm now into my 50s, and with undersea mass, that means I now can compete as a Masters Level 1. And I started competing as that last year, and I have 4 world records. And actually this year at the World Championships, I did get all 4 gold medals in all the 4 disciplines. So I'm 4
Wow.
times world champion as well.
Wow. Congratulations on that.
Thank you
That's
very much.
amazing.
Thank you.
So let's just jump to this last one then. So your last competition to take 4 world records.
No, 4 gold medals.
So sorry, 4 gold medals, sorry. How deep did you dive for that?
I was diving, oh gosh, apnea brain. What was I diving to? I think I was diving around the 70-meter mark. It's been a tough couple of years for me training wise for one reason or another. And so I haven't been at my best performance. But as with all sports, on the day I turned up, I did what I'd announced. I announced within my capabilities. And for whatever reason, I came top of the board on each day, and so won the gold.
Yeah, that's great. So that 70
I'd
odd
like to
meter,
have been diving deeper.
right?
Definitely would have liked to have been diving deeper, and I have to keep reminding myself, it's sport. I turned up, I performed on the day, the cards fell as they did, and I ended up in gold place, and that's very nice for me.
Yeah. So that 70 odd meter dive for you to get
Yep.
the gold medal.
Yep.
How long were you holding your breath for?
So that is, you aim to go about a meter per second. So say, for example, you've got the monofin on, which looks like a big dolphin tail. You have 2 foot pockets that you put your feet into, and then this great big fin below you. And that's the fastest discipline. And that dive would be around 2 minutes 20. So 1 minute 10 down and 1 minute 10 back up. And it's pretty epic.
Yeah. But
Talking
that
about
fin
it's
allows
really
you to
making me
descend.
miss it.
That fin allows you to descend and ascend faster, does it?
Yes, but the descent, actually, we rely on, here's the part that It's the most amazing part of the dive, the free fall, and is the most terrifying for people who haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
What it is, when I spoke earlier about balancing the thickness, the buoyancy of my wetsuit with weights, is that and it's different for every freediver, but I aim to be neutrally buoyant at around 14 meters. What that means is anything above 14 meters below the surface, I will just float up to the surface because that's where I'm positively buoyant. At 14 meters, if I go down the line and I let go of it, I won't move up or down. I will just stay suspended mid-water column. If I start moving below that, I will start to sink. Now, I actually go into my free fall significantly deeper than that because I want to build up a speed to be free falling at least a meter per second.
Mm-hmm.
And the free falling, you are allowing gravity to pull you down into the ocean.
Wow.
Which sounds terrifying
Yeah,
to anyone who hasn't experienced it. But to anyone who has ever dreamt of, as a child, flying, it is like that. As a child, at the school I was at, there was a hill in the playground, and I used to run down it, flapping my wings, praying that I would take off and fly. I used to dream about flying. The free fall feels like flying. You are completely relaxed, and you just feel the water over your hands and your face, so you get an idea of the speed you're going, and it is the most incredible sensation. If you're a beginner, though, it's like, oh my God, this is insane. And then your brain suddenly goes, you have to go back. At which point you kind of blindly panic, turn around and race back up to the surface. But we train in a very sort of gradual way so that I never have that response.
Mm-hmm.
The way I got to depth over time is very gradually, and I train so that I don't experience fear on a dive, because the moment you start experiencing fear on a dive, it actually affects your nervous system. It affects you mentally for your next dive. This is such a mental sport. Not in terms of people being crazy to do it, although I think some of your listeners might be thinking that, but in terms of where you are mentally, focusing in the moment, not allowing yourself to be distracted, not allowing fear to come in or that negative voice. So it's really important not to have dives that are full of negative emotion. So your progression should be gradual.
Yeah.
And it's taken me many years to get down to 79 meters, so that now when I'm at that level in my season, or 70 meters as it was this year, I know I can do that dive. So I go into it more confident and more relaxed.
Yeah.
And that makes all the difference for that dive in that moment and for all my future dives as well.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, when we were communicating, you kind of sent me a quote that said, the opposite of anxiety isn't peace, it's trust. And that's quite a profound statement. And the more I've thought about it, it's very, it's a very good statement, a very clear statement when you think about it properly. Do you want to just expand on that?
I'd love to. It's people think that the opposite of anxiety is peace and calm. And they're not. They are amazing byproducts of what the actual opposite is, which is trust. That's self-trust. So trust in yourself, trust in your abilities, in your experience, in the people around you, in your loved ones, in your friends, in your family, in your work environment, throughout to the greater world. The more you are able to cultivate that trust that starts within yourself, the less anxiety you experience. And one of the most amazing things about freediving is its ability to very compassionately and very gradually allow you to build that trust. And what I mean by that is going back to this gradual progression. So if you imagine, for depth training, we're always diving down a line.
Yeah.
We're always attached to the line for safety. So I know my buddy is always up at the top of the surface for
Yeah.
my descent and is going to meet me on the way back at the last third of my dive and escort me back up to the surface. That's because that last third is potentially the most dangerous. So
Yeah.
they make sure you're safe for the last bit of the dive and for doing your surface protocol. Now, when you go down the line and you even go to, say, 10 meters, and you hold onto the line and you look around at this incredible world that we don't generally get to see. Very few people actually get to see and experience and appreciate in a calm way. And enjoy the blue, enjoy the underside of the surface of the sea, which is absolutely stunning to watch it, whether it's raining or whether there are waves or whatever, and realize that actually you can stay there, you can be quite calm, and you can go back up whenever you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And the confidence and the trust that builds in yourself is phenomenal. And then you take that to dry land. You go, if I can do that underwater holding my breath, what can I do on dry land? And you can progress that by, I'm down at 10 meters. Can I stay really relaxed? Can I calmly go another 50 centimeters or another meter? And then turn and then come back up and stay completely relaxed. Every time you do that, you are building that self-trust.
Yeah.
And strengthening your belief in your abilities. And the more you strengthen your own foundations of self-trust, the more you begin to be able, the less you experience anxiety, for starters, and the more you are able to start trusting those around you. And that trust ripples through to other people and they start reflecting it back. So it's a real community builder, which is, especially when you talk about mental health and people needing to feel safe before they can even consider opening up to someone else, is so vitally important and essential. I talk about 5 tools that I use, that I started using before I started freediving, that helped me to start rebuilding that self-trust that had got decimated by years and years of depression. You know,
Mm-hmm.
God, I didn't trust anyone else. I didn't trust myself. You know, that the final part is your own self-trust crumbles away. And so I used these 5 tools, and then I started freediving, and I use these same tools in my freediving training, and the freediving amplifies them and magnifies them and makes them even stronger. So self-trust, expanding out into trust of those around you, is one of the things that will really help calm that anxiety and help it dissipate. It's a magical skill to build.
Which one of those tools do you most often use on dry land then?
Breathing, because I can't breathe underwater. I'm a breathwork instructor for a couple of different disciplines, and it is my go-to of the 5 tools that I work with. It is so profoundly powerful. As human beings, we have this amazing capacity to be able to control our breathing and change it. And when we focus on our breathing, we can alter our physical and mental states in seconds in the most profound way. And there are many, many different breathing exercises you can use to do this. My particular favorite, that is my go-to without a shadow of a doubt, is the 4-6 breathing. So you inhale for a count of 4, you exhale for a count of 6, and you don't use a seconds metric. The reason why is, if you're really, really stressed to start off with and you're breathing really fast, to say to anyone, I want you to breathe in for 4 seconds and then out for 10 seconds, that's just going to cause them to freak out even more, because they can't do that because they're so stressed.
Yeah.
So you do the count in your head.
So their own count of 6 or
Yep.
their own count
In
of
your
4.
head. So it may be inhale 2, 3, 4, exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
But as you get into it, after 20, 30 seconds, the body naturally starts to calm down, because you're actually, by doing this breathing, it's like chasing the tail. You're telling your brain, I'm safe, I'm calm. So the brain goes, oh, we can relax more. And you just keep circulating like that. And if you keep doing it on seconds, you only get to relax so much. Whereas if you're counting in your head, you could end up 90 seconds later being inhale, 2, 3, 4. And so the quality of the decompression that your body actually gets is so much more profound. And this exercise, I say to my clients, because I do breath work with them, and I'm so fanatical, if there was only one exercise you were ever able to do for the rest of your life, in terms of going swimming, going to the gym, going for a walk, whatever, and I'm a big movement girl, being static is a depressant. It's not that exercise is an antidepressant. It's that when we're static, when we don't move, that increases our chances of depression and depression itself. So movement is essential. But if there was only one exercise we could do for the rest of our lives, it would be 4-6 breathing before bedtime. Quietly and calmly, because it puts your body into the most restful state, the strongest parasympathetic response, which is your rest and digest, which means you will get the best possible sleep you can.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that everything is easier the day after a decent night's sleep.
Absolutely.
Exercise, work, having those difficult conversations with people we love, everything is slightly easier. So that 10 minutes before you go to sleep of gentle, quiet 4-6 breathing, which isn't a big volume breath.
Yeah.
It's just the kind of breathing that you do while you're watching something on television. Just relaxed, paying attention to it to help you get really good quality sleep.
Your tools obviously aren't theory, that you've lived through them and worked through them. And what's the one thing that you could tell the listeners as a tool to use? This is it. So we're not going to circle back to that. So listeners, this is the tool that you need to be using, that you would recommend.
Anyone can do it.
I love that, because it's not about kind of keeping within some kind of constraints that someone's given you. It's your own personal kind of 4-6 distance, and that, like you said, that 4 and 6 can extend and extend and extend, so that 6 could be, whatever.
You want to actually keep it you don't want to be extending it so long.
I just mean over time.
One cycle is like half a second.
Yeah.
You want it to be around a cycle being an inhale and exhale around the 10-second mark. But if it goes to end up being nearer 15, that's not a problem at all. One of the really fascinating things about this exercise as well is studies have come out recently that say 20 minutes of 4-6 breathing is not better for you at reducing anxiety than 5 minutes. All I'm asking you and your viewer for here is 5 minutes. It helps you build up a resistance to future stress.
Right.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
So in terms of a change that anyone can do in the moment to improve their life, it is that kind of breathing, and to do it through their nose. All of that through their nose.
Okay.
And if you find it difficult, keep practicing, because this piece of equipment and the sinuses behind it are a phenomenal piece of equipment designed incredibly well, and we need to be breathing through our nose as much of the time as humanly possible. But that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. So you're now you're 51, And
I am.
and I'm not wanting to remind you of that, but you've got 25 years of recovery behind you, and this is a kind of important question why I focus on your age. A lot of people think that after 40, you're in decline and you can't do this, that, and the other. So how has aging actually made you stronger?
I started freediving at 39. One of the things I love about freediving is because it's such a mental sport and it's low impact. No one's really found an age where you have to stop yet. And I fully intend to be competing at least for a couple more decades. I mean, there
Amazing.
are people in their 70s who are doing 90-meter dives.
Wow.
I'd like to be one of them. I'd like to be going deeper if I possibly can. We'll see. The beauty of the freediving is that, while people in their 20s and 30s might find it a lot easier to be physically in shape, and I say that with because I have to work very hard, the older you get, the stronger you get mentally. And as I say, because freediving is such a mental sport, it actually gives me an edge on the younger athletes. And it's why you still have older athletes doing significantly deep dives, which is really amazing.
Yeah.
In terms of everyday life, I was on the phone today to someone and they were talking about, they're having an 80th birthday party and they were inviting me to, and they were like, not sure how many people you'll know that are in the middle-age group. And I sort of went, am I middle-aged? Because it's a really funny one because I feel like I may be 34 or 35. I certainly don't act like a 51-year-old. Which I think is good.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by lots of younger freedivers, which keeps me young and is also quite traumatic as well, in terms of how easy they find it to keep in shape. But I am a real proponent of age should not be a barrier to what you do in life. Yes, there are some things that I possibly might not consider doing now. I probably wouldn't take up riding dirt bikes, motorbikes, because I've recently learnt how to ride a scooter because of the places I traveled to and getting around for the training and competing. I need to hire a scooter to get around. I kind of find that a bit terrifying, but it's a good challenge and it's great for working my focus.
As in a scooter motorbike?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And some of the places I go to, the other drivers on the road are terrifying. And, there are some things I wouldn't jump out of aeroplanes anymore, but I have done it in the past. There probably isn't much that I actually wouldn't try because I don't believe age should be a barrier. Physically, will my body tolerate it? That's probably more likely to stop me. But I am also, if you don't move it, you lose it.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
The older you get, the more important it is to move it. And to hark back to that not moving is a depressant. As people get into their 70s and 80s and movement becomes harder, that becomes the time you have to double down and you have to do it even more. My parents live in a house with 5 floors and they are 84, both of them. And a few years ago, they had an 80th birthday party. And without sounding harsh, obviously a lot of their contemporaries, their friends were there. And I sort of found myself looking at all of them and going, my parents look and act 10 years younger. My father used to be a doctor, so he's very much about fitness. He does his HIIT training every morning for 15 minutes. He does breath hold exercises that I've adapted for him as well every day. You know, they live in a house with 5 floors. They're constantly moving.
Yeah.
And it shows because
Yeah.
physically he still skis,
Wow.
aged 84. And they're cognitively still there. It's so essential to keep moving from an aging point of view and from a mental health point of view. You know, it really, yeah. And it does make you feel better. It might be hard work, but the more you do it, the more you actually feel better. I'm not a runner. You were talking about doing ultra running earlier, and I struggled to go out on a 5K. But the more I do it, and I'm very fortunate, I have a park very close to me, which we just had the spectacular autumn colours, and I do try and go out. I watch the weather apps specifically to go out when there might be some sunshine. And it's just, it's amazing. But I have to psych myself into going out there. But afterwards, I am beginning to experience the runner's high and go, oh my God, I did it. That's amazing. And feel really happy for sort of half an hour afterwards. And then later on in the day when I remember, yes, I did that this morning.
Yeah. The thing about running is the first 10 minutes is hard. And then afterwards it gets, you know.
I'd say the first 30 minutes is hard. And my 5K is about 31 minutes. As I say, I'm not a runner. That's down from 37, though. So
very good. I saw that you posted that, actually.
I had a good one last week.
Yeah, but nobody comes back from a run saying it was rubbish, really, because everyone's really enjoyed it in the end. So let's just move on to our last question, right? And this last question leads me on perfectly from what you've been talking about your parents and a 5-floor house and age not being a limit. So the motto of the podcast is one step stronger, live longer. Yeah. So what does one step stronger, live longer mean to you?
Consistency. It means, and I'm really discovering this right now. I've always, you know, I think probably to call me an amateur athlete. I do my freediving 6 months of the year effectively. And that's not in one chunk. And depth takes a toll, so you have to rest. And finding the right balance of resting my nervous system, recovering from intensive depth training, and then building up the muscles again, because depth training eats muscles very, very quickly. And finding that balance. And I'm really actually finally learning that consistency is key. It's if I'm consistent, it becomes easier to go for that run and easier to do that strength session and easier to go to the pool and do the apnea training session. And that consistency then turns into, oh, I feel better. And I'm been working really hard on that the last 6 weeks. And I'm like, I'm beginning to actually really start feeling good about it, because I know when I've done the exercise, I am going to feel better physically and mentally. I'm going to feel ready to do whatever the next thing in my day is.
Mm-hmm.
So it is one step in front of the other. And you break it down to be that simple. If you think this week I've got to do all of this stuff, then it's a complete overload. It is one step at a time. And just work in that. I mean, when I was in my first stages of recovery, I talk about my survival was 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day at a time. And it was bite-sized survival.
Mm-hmm.
Bite-sized sport, bite-sized movement, bite-sized activity. And even if it's just a 5-minute walk around the block, keep doing it every single day. And then after a few days, go for 6 minutes. You know, it's the consistency of doing it every day, rain or shine. but the consistency makes it easier, it makes it more fun, and then the benefits just keep building and building.
Well, listen, that's a great thing to leave our listeners with as the final point. And so if our listeners want to find out more about you, more about your work, your breath work, your training, your speaking, and watch, as I mentioned earlier, watch a couple of your films that you've made, where can they find you? I'll be putting all the information in the show notes, but you tell us where can they find you?
Thank you. I think probably it's different social medias, different sort of things on each. I think LinkedIn is more kind of my businessy side. Instagram, there's a lot of underwater. Well, there's a lot of underwater photos on LinkedIn as well, but it's more kind of the everyday, a bit more freedive orientated. And my website, helenabourdillon.com, which gives all of my information. There are a couple of films, as you mentioned. The last one, Light Beams for Helena, which did really well at the film festivals, is probably, I mean, I'm very proud of both those films, actually. Yeah, it's one of the things I'm proudest of. It's very beautiful. It is quite an emotional film. It does talk about my crash and how desperate things got, but it is, I think, quite uplifting at the end and very powerful, and we made it to help others. So if any of your viewers watch it, it'd be great if you put a link in the show notes actually to Vimeo. It's on Vimeo.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
If any of them want to share it on, please do so, because if it can encourage anyone along the way, then that's absolutely amazing. That's me, really.
Fantastic. Listen, Helena, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. That was a phenomenal story, some great insight, and I'm sure our listeners are going to be looking at your films and catching up with you. And don't forget, one step stronger, live longer.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Tony. Absolute pleasure.
Cheers. Bye-bye. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode and found some value in it. If you have, remember you can like, subscribe, and leave a review. It will really help to get this message out to more listeners who need to hear these kind of conversations. Thanks, and don't forget, one step stronger, live longer.